And that's what I call now the commercial. Our current patents involve fuel motion and airflow. I do a lot of carburetor work, and this is why I get involved with the droplet idea and everything I do. I do carburetors, everything from cup teams down to dirt circle and stuff, and we've learned a lot from working through this process. The smaller the droplet, the better. The less you do to impede the droplet, the better. So we've gone off and patented some of the things that we've learned, and now are in the process of manufacturing our own line of carburetors. And they're done in billet right now. That's why you see that there. This is a patent pending. Change booster position for turbo, hood scoop, and cowl pressure. Well, the patent exists where we put the mean area above the booster. It's the first one that we're aware of that ever did that. What we found from working with cowl pressure in Winston Cup and from hood scoop pressure and drag racing, and those guys were ever insane enough to try to do a turbo carburetor deal, is with the mean area below the fuel feed would actually push the fuel backwards. It changes the fuel curve as you increase the pressure above over the mean area. So as you go down the racetrack with a hood scoop, your fuel curve is changing. As the guys are going 200 miles an hour at Talladega or Daytona, the fuel curve is changing. So we said we're going to develop a carburetor so that the fuel curve would always be linear to the pressure differential. So that was one of our patents right there, just moving the mean area up. This gives you a little better clue. You can see it from the bottom. Prototype DAM carburetor bottom view. If you can see here now that the mean area is above the fuel delivery. And this is one of the customized aftermarket carburetors. And give you an idea, we use this particular one in street and marine applications, and it's been pretty successful for us. We put it on a 330 Mercury Marine last year, and it was tested with GPS, which goes up to a satellite. And from dead in the water to on plane, it was 2.5 seconds quicker. That's like adding 100 horsepower to the boat. Our fuel emulsion system, which is inside the metering blocks, is our first patent. It's called a core patent. We took and changed smooth wall conduit, and we made different renderings by either rings or knurls, what we use in this one. And depending on the speed of the fuel, you can go everywhere from a cascading effect to finding the natural frequency of the fuel. And if you're using like a waterfall, and you figure that's a cascading effect, making the droplets smaller, up to finding the natural frequency of the fuel, you can make the droplets pretty small. And this is just a slightly bigger bar for our carburetors, our carbs that are based on horsepower requirements. And when I say that before is when someone calls me up now and they say, how much air does your carburetor flow or anything else? It's always based on what it's doing with the droplet in it. Depending on the size of the plume of the fuel coming out of the booster or size of the port and how the fuel's going through, we don't do anything that's not wet anymore. And there were some tricks to getting our patents in some stock-looking carburetors. Right now, if you go to some of the circuits where they only allow a stock-appearing carburetor, we're doing pretty fortunate. In a 2-barrel, just changing the metering block and putting one of our metering blocks is about 12 foot-pounds of torque. This 4-barrel, and that's a finished carburetor, it looks stock, but there's about 50 horsepower in that carburetor.